everyone's here. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Planning and Development Committee meeting. It's Monday, November 26, 2012. It's about 7:18, and we're ready to begin our agenda for this evening. We have a quorum tonight, and first item is to approve the regular meeting minutes of November 12, 2012. Is there a motion to approve?
Move approval. Second.
Any changes or corrections? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we have one item for consideration tonight. It's P1, Ordinance 138-012, granting a special use for an automobile service station and a variance for a 19-foot accessory structure canopy height at 2400 Main Street. The Zoning Board of Appeals and City staff recommend adoption of Ordinance 138-012, granting a special use permit for the operation of an automobile service station and a variance for a 19-foot accessory structure canopy height at 2400 Main Street, and that's for introduction. Is there a staff report on that? Okay. 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 Dennis Marino.
Thank you, Alderman Fisk. Dennis Marino, Manager of Planning and Zoning. The item in front of you tonight is recommended for approval by the Zoning Board of Appeals, Site Plan and Appearance Review, as well as City staff. It is a special use for an automobile service station and also a variation for a 19-foot accessory structure canopy height. The as-of-right canopy would be 14.5 feet. The additional height is necessary because the elevation of the site and also to make sure that fuel trucks can clear given that elevation. This is the one of the outlot parcels at the Food for Less site that was anticipated for development per the redevelopment agreement, but since it requires a special use, it has to go through the process with ZBA and City Council, of course. Steve Engelman is here representing the development team, and I'd like to invite him to come to the podium.
Mm-hmm. I know.
Peter Braithwaite, Second Ward Alderman. Good evening. I just wanted to share my support to the committee this evening. Actually, on October 18th, I had an opportunity to meet with members of my ward. We put out flyers to the community, made an announcement in our newsletter. We had about 40 members of the community show up. Majority of the people that were present there live very close proximity to the actual site location for the gas station. The folks behind me made a very wonderful presentation in a moment. We're going to ask for them to just kind of give a higher level overview of the discussion. But in general, everyone that was present was in favor of the proposal with very few objections. The only thing that was noted, and I did make that clear to Director Robinson, there was concern about pedestrian safety in terms of neighbors being able to access the mall, which was a totally separate conversation, but it was issues that were brought up. So I'd like to introduce former Alderman Steve Engelman, who is the attorney on the project, to share the proposal.
Thank you, Peter.
And good evening, Alderman Engelman.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to introduce David Kopenhofer of Food for Less. He's here tonight with Huli Sali of SOSO and Natalie Mao of Food for Less. David's going to give you an overview of the project, and then I'll talk to you and we'll answer any questions you have.
Good evening. David Kopenhofer, 1526 North Hudson, Chicago. I am the real estate manager for Food for Less's local operations here in the Chicago area. What I've prepared is a very brief presentation that I'd like to get through. I'm more than happy to answer questions if you'd like to in between. Otherwise, there is a space for questions at the end, and we can go back to that point. To that end, as Steve and the Alderman alluded to, is we are proposing for the installation and development of a Food for Less branded fuel center on the undeveloped out parcel in our existing shopping center there at Main Street Marketplace. To give you some brief perspective as to where and what it is I'm discussing, you can see the site identified here on the south side of Main Street, east of McCormick here in Evanston. We have the site identified on this plot plan at the furthest northern portion of the shopping center with the applicable streets and access points illustrated Once again, another illustration of that, our store, which is identified by its store number of 558, and the Sam's Club and their applicable fuel center down at the southern portion of the shopping center. As you see, Sam's Fuel Center today, and where I'm proposing for a Food for Less fuel station. To just give you some additional perspective, we've taken some pictures. This is looking eastbound along Main Street, identifying the site in question. The opposite direction here, we're looking westbound along Main Street with the undeveloped parcel identified. Here's looking across the street, facing south and into the shopping center. The opposite direction, looking north. The front view facing the northeast. And this shot facing the southwest with an additional superimposed concept of an elevation that we're looking for, including our Food for Less branded fuel center and the 19-foot canopy that we were asking to develop. To give you some brief
Could I
general...
just interrupt you for a moment?
Yes.
Alderman Rainey, did you have a question?
I do. And I didn't want to have to go back because you're right where I wanted. If you could go back just a little bit. My concern about this project, a couple of concerns, but one of them is it appears to me, and I never did see an exact visual of this, but it appears to me that these little stores, Little Walk, all the little stores leading up to the Starbucks, are just going to be wiped out visually by this station. And I guess you control the space so you can do whatever you want, but what are you going to do to highlight that those stores are still back there?
I'm happy to answer that question, and maybe I should allude to the deal that we have in place. We do lease our store today from the shopping center. The entity that owns the shopping center is called Bond Companies.
Yeah.
So we will ground lease is the proposed deal that we're talking about. He owns the small shop space. He's responsible for those tenants, and I can tell you that he is obviously satisfied with the issue. I guess I would like to point, and what I've told other people.
I know all that. I know all that. What I'm concerned about are the little stores.
Yeah.
Does anybody give a darn about their visibility from the street?
I think absolutely, and I would point to the idea that this parcel, obviously undeveloped zone for commercial development. You could place a bank, you could place a McDonald's, you could place anything on there that's going to have no visual sight lines at all to those shop spaces. I personally like to think that the fuel center with the canopy, as you see, will, one, prevent view lines, but two, it's a sedentary concept that I think, don't hold me to this, but I think the average fill-up today is something like 1 minute and 40 seconds. And when people do come over there, the main concept is people that shop at a grocery store. We want them to come over to this side of the shopping center, fuel up, and when you're outside of your car, I guess I would only think that you're going to have the opportunity to maybe see shop space that you wouldn't have seen if you were only shopping our store before and pulling out onto Main Street. My view, I hope that addresses your question.
Is that, can I just add on to that? And if I'm looking at it now, and I'm trying to remember the pictures that I looked at that have been sent to us, that is the canopy. There's not a big building there, right?
It's just a small kiosk.
Yeah. So you can still see through there if you're driving down Main Street.
If you're driving down Main Street, I mean, I wish that we had done it from the other side as well. But yeah, superimposed, you should be able to see through. Like any fuel center, it will be an employee-only kiosk. Were there any other questions?
And I'm just wondering, I thought you could, the way it's looking now, it looks like you could maybe see through there.
You can. There's this picture here, but it still is a barricade.
Yeah, no, I understand.
It is.
I hear you.
With that, some general information I'd tell you. Ralph's Grocery Company does business as Food for Less Midwest, is a wholly owned subsidiary of the Kroger Company. The enterprise currently employs more than 339,000 associates, serving customers in 2,425 supermarkets and multi-department stores across 31 states. We operate under nearly 24 local banners names as a company, and we currently operate 1,124 supermarket fueling stations across the country. Within the Chicago area, we operate under the Food for Less banner, employing just over 1,400 associates while operating 16 supermarket locations and 8 existing fueling operations here within the city, the greater Chicago MSA. The Food for Less concept is best described, if you haven't been there, as a full-line warehouse-style format store, offering customers full-service offerings, including fresh produce, meats, deli, bakery, and bakery products. We take pride in doing this while selling both national and store brand products at very attractive prices. In specific regards to the proposed fuel center project, we're talking about the installation of a 5 MPD fueling station It's really 10 pumps, 5 poles, 2 pumps on either side. We're talking about providing regular, unleaded, mid-grade, premium, and diesel gasoline at this site. Like all of our other fueling locations, we're proposing hours of operation from 5 a.m. to midnight, which is 1 hour before the store opens, and closing at the same time the food store closes. We're talking about providing a net increase of 2 parking spaces. As you can imagine today, it's an undeveloped parcel, so we're going to remove 22 existing spaces while adding back in 24. I want to point out that there are some pieces and some recommendations that can change that. I think 2 or 3 spaces has been referenced in different places.
If we could interrupt for one more minute, Alderman Nguyen has a question.
I know that this is coming up in your report, but I noticed that you're going to be providing 2 restrooms that have an exterior entrance. Are you required, and this is both for the staff and also for you, does our zoning require them to provide restrooms with a fueling station?
Not zoning, but the building code might, and I don't have that answer tonight.
My other question is, because I see an exterior opening restroom that's open. How does someone get access to that?
They'll be open at all times, and I will answer. We build them per code. It's our understanding that the 2 restrooms are that responsibility.
Okay. Well, then, does someone get the key from the attendant?
Standard practice is that we try to leave them open. There are areas that we operate in that we've decided that leaving them open at all times isn't the prudent thing to do, and we make an operational decision once it's been opened. If there are issues that are coming with just allowing people free access, then we have in the past gone to asking for the key. But our intention is to operate them.
Right. Well, I think it's a very nice convenience, but generally speaking, I think fueling stations that have an exterior entrance are just not places that most people would really like to have to use. So, that's my question. My view is that I think that it detracts from the site.
Point taken. I will point as we get to the thing, we purposely didn't want to or didn't even propose bringing a convenience store to this site. We aren't interested in what I think sometimes that can bring. My only answer to you is we're doing the 2 restrooms purely by our interest in code.
Yeah.
If there was a way to get around it, I'd love an internal employee-only kiosk to meet our requirements, obviously, for the service of our employees.
Okay, thank you. That answers my question.
Alderman Rainey.
Is there fueling 24 hours?
The proposal today is for 5 a.m. to midnight. We are asking, and what we've done in other situations, we're required to petition the state to operate unmanned from 12 o'clock to 5 a.m. in the morning, which we do at all of our other fueling stations. They've granted that allowance.
But this will be just till midnight?
Our proposal to you today is 12 to 5. We are stating that our intention is to petition the state to allow us to do 12 to 5 as well.
What is the deal with special use with almost 24 hours, right? Isn't there some requirement?
No, it'd be ours to condition.
Pardon me?
It would be up to the city council to condition.
But they would have to come back.
Yes.
To do that.
So if he goes to the state and the state says, okay, he'd have to come back to you because your hour conditions is what controls.
I would remind us that
Can you talk?
whatever the wing place is there, we had a discussion about the hours that they could deliver. Right. Do you remember that?
Yes.
If this comes back and there's a gas station open, then we ought to reconsider the delivery hours. I don't want to reconsider the gas station hours because I think there are enough gas stations that are open all night. But if we have to, we should remember that we restricted others.
I think where I was talking, and we wanted to make sure that it was clear, is I am only talking to, I think it's 120 square foot employee-only kiosk. We aren't proposing a full-blown convenience store at this site. We're talking about the idea of the 2 exterior-facing restrooms that we discussed, some general outdoor merchandise displays like at other fuel centers with bagged ice, bottled drinks, case water, automotive fluids, and et cetera. What I want to make clear here is in intention of our operations, it's Food for Less branded. It's run by our local Food for Less store. Our store manager, if built, would have ultimate responsibility. I think by my crude math, 12 to 5 is something along the lines of 130 hours. We'd staff that with additional employees to staff during those 130 hours that we're discussing, but make it clear that it is run ultimate responsibility, just like for our parking lot in front of our store and keeping up the upkeep, cleanliness. That same responsibility would fall on our local store management team for operating that fuel center. Obvious benefits that we want.
One more second, Alderman Rainey.
Would you hire people who have experience working in gas stations, or would you take like the person who's a checker and put them out to run the pumps?
It's a trainable piece. I guess we certainly don't. It's not a specific fuel center requirement to be a fuel center attendant. I couldn't tell you our exact hiring practices.
Let me tell you some of my experience. In my ward and adjacent to my ward, there are 8 gas stations, which are some of the biggest problems that you can have. So it would be of great concern to me to know that you had people who, first of all, were mature, not somebody who was taken off the cash register and who was trainable, but people who had some sense of what goes on at gas stations after hours, late at night, etc. They're problems. They are real problems.
I'd say point taken to the point that all we can do is we want to operate the best fuel center. We obviously have no interest in not being a positive, community member and operator. I can't make you promises on that it's a specific hiring, but I don't think any other fuel center operator hires specifically trained.
And I think we have clear evidence of that. That's my point. My point is this is a very important shopping center, as you know,
Right.
and I just hope this doesn't screw that up. So, just saying.
The proposed benefits that we'd like to point out are obviously for an undeveloped parcel here in the city of Evanston since the time of its inception. We are talking about property and sales tax generation for Evanston and the local community. Investment in our local business operations with intentions of being around the community for a long time to come. I can tell you the project's about $1 million proposed investment that we're talking about putting here. I'm not asking for handouts or economic incentives or things along those lines. It is an incentive, and I'm going to tell you why it's an important part of our business going forward. But a piece that I think the community should be aware of in our business model and why we think it's an exciting opportunity for the community is it will provide an opportunity for discounted gas to all consumers, regardless of whether or not you shop at Food for Less. Unlike our competitor in the parking lot that requires you to be a member to take advantage of a fuel savings program, our go-to-business strategy allows people the opportunity to save up to 10 cents off per gallon on fill-up if you buy groceries in the local Food for Less store. Without getting into a detailed explanation of the program, I guess in brief generalities, if you buy up to $100 worth of groceries in a given month, will allow you to get off 10 cents off per gallon, up to 35 gallons on an average fill-up. I think we're all aware today of what gas prices are and what they do to us. It really has been a tremendous driver of business in our store for that loyalty program. More so, what we like to point out, obviously, I hope everybody becomes a Food for Less shopper and takes advantage of that, but anybody that takes advantage of the program and gets our loyalty card, anybody will get 3 cents off per gallon simply by swiping that card at the fuel center. And to give you a concept, I think a lot of people I've learned have a perception that you're just going to jack your prices up to take advantage of those cents. I think you'll come to see with our pricing strategy at other stores, we're going to match the lowest competitor in the area to truly make our discount mean something to our customers, and I truly do believe and can tell you from experience that it's something that's positive. To what I told you about Food for Less, if you haven't had the opportunity of shopping with us, we truly do take pride on being the low price operator where we serve. This is part of our value proposition. It's part of what we've gone to business and what we're trying to be, and has really become, as evidenced by the 8 stores today and trying to get more. It's an important part of our business, and quite frankly, an important part of Kroger's business as a whole. Sorry.
No, you're done.
We're just going to go real quickly. I think you guys have in your packets. I didn't plan to explain it in depth, but this was a general site layout. What you saw was the undeveloped parcel with the fuel center on the east side. We've got a landscape plan attached to your thing, along with the landscaping and a general elevation. It's all in your packet, and I didn't plan on explaining most of it. Were there any questions? Other than that, I had Steve Engelman that would speak to the specific request that we have today.
Before you ask questions, let me add one thing. And that deals with the...
Speak into the mic, please.
In addition to the special use, which we've been talking about, there is also a request for a variation for the height of the canopy, which is unique to this property because the property slopes almost 2 feet from one part of it to the other. And that's why we need a variation to increase the height to 9.5 feet, as measured from the lowest point on the ground to the top of the canopy. And that's the other piece we're asking for tonight.
Okay, are there any questions? Any more questions? Alderman Rainey?
What are you going to sell, other than oil and what are you going to sell it for?
Standard thing. So inside you'll have inside the kiosk, it's an employee self-enclosed kiosk. There will be lottery sales and things of those likes inside. We're also talking about the outdoor display of merchandise. I think our standards are bagged ice. We'll likely have a cooler for some single-serve sodas, things along those lines, and then automotive products, things to clean your car.
But no candy, chips, and that kind of stuff?
I would tell you, I think that there will be candy and chips inside the space. I think standard food items.
Can you, okay, let me ask my question one more time. What are you going to sell inside the convenience space?
Inside, the kiosk is not accessible to the public from the outside to the inside. So
You'll say, I want a Mars bar.
I want a Mars. As you're passing the money through the drawer or door to pay for the gas, there are chips, there are candy bars, and tobacco products that you can request that are behind the counter, so to speak.
Rolling papers, bongs, any
No.
of that stuff? No. Well, you'll be the only gas station in town without those things, so that's why I asked.
We don't sell it in our store. We won't sell it at the kiosk.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? All right, this is before us to introduce at council tonight, Alderman Holmes.
Trying to remember in terms of the nearness to a park, because there's a park right across the street.
Well,
That
actually, all the properties immediately abutting this property site, as well as across the main street from this site, are zone C1 or I. They're all commercial or industrial in nature. There is a park, I believe, at the other far end next to Sam's.
No, I'm talking about north. I can't think of the name of it.
I'm going to try to bring up an aerial.
Yeah, but it's a park. I mean, there's a basketball court right at McDaniel and at Main. But also, Baby Toddler is right down the street, so how can you have tobacco products? I'm just asking.
So what, is there a restriction?
Yeah, I thought you couldn't have tobacco products.
I will point out to this, it's part of the proposal. Obviously, this hasn't been approved yet. If there is an existing code, we'd obviously adhere to that. I can't tell you that we've fully in-depthly researched that. If it's against code, if it's within a certain distance, it won't be sold. I
may be
can't
wrong,
speak.
but I thought there was
Our-
some distance issues.
Our initial research
Yeah,
said no, but
please do.
we'll obviously look into it before selling it.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, so all in favor of moving this to council for introduction?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, got a unanimous vote.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
is it necessary for us to stay around for the introduction?
No,
Okay, we'll talk about it in 2 weeks then.
okay.
Thank you.
It's nice seeing you. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Okay, we're going to move on to 2 items for discussion. The first one is PD1, proposed amendments to plan developments for 1881 Oak and 1890 Maple. We have some folks that are signed up to speak for citizen comment on this. And since we have 2 items for discussion, what I'm going to do is break up citizen comment so we have comment right before each item. So the people who have signed up to speak on PD1 are Stamata Blanas, Mike McLaughlin, Ken Brown, Tina Payton, and Betty Esther. And you have 3 minutes, please. So if you could all come up. Stamata, Mike, Ken.
Hello, everyone.
No, 3 minutes apiece. Yep.
Hi, everyone. Alderman, it's nice to see everyone this evening. My name is Stamata Blanas, and I live at 1720 Maple. I am also a business owner here in Evanston for over 21 years in the downtown. The reason I'm here to speak tonight is regarding the changes to the plan development that was approved several years ago. I could talk, many of us are going to be here to speak, so I'm going to avoid speaking about high-density traffic and all those implications that this project originally we discussed. And I'm here to speak tonight about jobs, Evanston jobs. As many of us know, that our downtown and much of our city is landlocked. And this particular location, the Research Park, is strictly a research facility which was designed for many years to bring in technology, research, innovation. As times changed, what happens is we started to change that particular area, and we looked at the options of putting condos there. And when that particular project came to be, to put a condo building in that location, we also looked at it as a planned development. And as a planned development, one of the recommendations that came with that to give height, density, and so on was what will it do for the city of Evanston? And what we looked at was bringing in Trader Joe's. Bob King, the developer, came with a proposal that Trader Joe's was interested to be in that particular site. Now, I was not in favor of that site, but I get it. I get why we wanted Trader Joe's. It was bringing Evanston jobs. It was bringing people all around Evanston to a commercial location, to the research park. It was impacting, but it was bringing jobs to Evanston. In this particular proposal, that I feel is completely different than the original proposal is, we are looking at strictly a rental property. We are basically taking our commercial property, which is very limited and very precious, and looking to change to a residential without any actual job creation, job growth, and opportunity for our citizens. Evanston has a need for commercial property. And the reason I say this is because in my office, I have people coming in all the time. I had Schneider Trucking many years ago. They came into Evanston with 5 people. They left with 120 people because our office space was unavailable. Their compressor or their generators would go down 3 to 5 times a month. I had somebody from Aon who moved now to their company, their corporate headquarters there in London. He told me time and time again, if there was office space in Evanston, he would be here. We could talk about the gentlemen from Kellogg who have over 2,000 employees. Their corporate headquarters are here. Those guys are growing by leaps and bounds. We cannot keep giving our commercial property away for residential, for things. When we built the condos, we chose to build those condos, but we asked them as planned developments, what are you giving to Evanston? What are you bringing to our community? Now, I understand we may get 50 or 100 blue-collar jobs while the project is being built. But in the long run, Trader Joe's was going to bring jobs for the next 50 years and bring jobs. There's a big difference. And because of that, what I am asking tonight is that I don't think us as a community, we should let the community decide if we truly are ready to start turning our commercial property into residential, into rental. And I truly feel we should send it back to plan development, or plan commission, and let the community speak openly on these major changes.
Thank you,
That's
Dr.
all.
Blanas.
Thank you.
Could we be a little more considerate of the time?
Yes.
Because it's going to be very late by the time we get out of here tonight.
Mike McLaughlin, please.
Yes, I happen to be the president of Optima Views, but I have been in the commercial real estate business for 37 years. And echoing what Stamata said, that park was created to help keep bright people in the area, innovative people such as that go to Northwestern, and gives them an opportunity to create startup jobs that will become bigger opportunities down the road. So I think, base level jobs that are long-term in nature make more sense than a one shot in the arm of construction jobs that build the property that don't have the enduring value that long-term jobs do. I would say that, first of all, there are 4 types of commercial property: industrial, office, retail, and apartments. Apartments is the hottest product today, which is why everybody wants to build it. But I don't understand why you would need to subsidize apartments because they sell on their own. As a matter of fact, the Buck property, the Park Evanston, is still the high water mark for price in the Chicago suburban area. This is a very desirable area. To me, if you're going to subsidize things, I would subsidize office space downtown. I just brought a company out of the John Hancock building and put them in the Rotary building, and I will tell you the rents you can achieve in Rotary are as good as you can achieve in John Hancock. So to me, if you're going to subsidize something, subsidize office space, because you don't have a lot of good institutional grade buildings in town that have indoor parking that people might consider as a good option to Class A buildings downtown. And there's a ready market because you have people living on the North Shore who drive downtown every day who might be just as happy to work in Evanston if the product were available. So that would be my recommendation, that you look at creating opportunities for new office in town. Not to mention the congestion that would be created on the corner of Oak and Maple and Emerson. To me, that's just doesn't make any sense, given what I know about the access in and out of that area. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we are timing folks up here, so Alderman Ryan.
Alderman Fisk, yes. May I have a point of personal privilege?
Of course.
One of the things we find in citizen comment is the more people say something, the more everybody thinks it's a fact. You commented several times that we are subsidizing, and I'm wondering what you mean, because I'm not giving this project a red cent. So do you know something we don't know about this project being subsidized? No, nothing. No. So I'd like to make it very clear that there were several misstatements made about this project. It is not being subsidized. Absolutely not. Okay? No, none whatsoever.
Mr. Brown.
Good evening. My name is Ken Brown. I'm the president of the Ivy Court Homeowners Association at 1889 Maple, directly across the street from the 1890 building. And I wanted to come here and represent some of the consensus views of our community of 30 townhouses. We were, several years ago when this project first came up, concerned. We are still concerned, and we wanted to make sure that our views were heard concerning the changes that are being made in this plan, and to make sure that the Planning and Development Commission reviews these and not think that things are just like they were 4 or 5 years ago, the last time it was heard. My understanding, and I hope that I'm accurate, my understanding is that there will be more rental properties and fewer owned condos, that there will be smaller apartments, there will be no townhouses on the property, less retail, and all of this will add up to a negative in the view of our community as far as the nature and the spirit of the community, and also notwithstanding certainly traffic problems. So I just wanted to represent our view on that, and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much. The final 2 speakers are Tina Payton and Betty Esther.
Good evening, Council. I'm Tina Payton, 1122 Emerson Street in Evanston. As I was when this first started, I'm opposed to the development. Reasoning is traffic. I'm there right there, Emerson and Ridge, and the traffic is horrendous. especially during rush hour. There has been no improvement in the traffic, as 5 years ago we were supposed to get new traffic lights and so forth. And for 2 buildings this height, I don't know if you've done any new traffic studies, but it hasn't improved, and it's actually getting worse. The city was supposed to be doing something about the transitional area, which is there on Emerson. That hasn't changed. And I don't think this is going to help it any by putting tall buildings in the way. Seems like something else could be done. You're supposed to be representing on Emerson. A lot of people come in for the movie theater and shopping downtown, and it looks bad now, and this project will make it look worse. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Esther?
My name is Betty Esther. I stay at 2130 Church Street. I was here when this project was given before. It had a certain amount of units. Now it's changing. And the one thing I didn't have time to look up, and I do apologize for that, they're increasing the number of rental unit. Does this increase in rental unit rise for us to activate the inclusionary zoning ordinance that we have, that they have to set aside so a number of affordable units? I did not get a chance to look at that, but that's something that should be looked at. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That ends our citizen comment on this discussion item. So this item is before us tonight to determine whether or not it should stay at council or be returned to the Plan Commission for consideration. And I'm sorry, I didn't see Alderman Holmes and Rainey. Whichever one of you was first.
I just wanted to ask a question, and just really to refresh my memory. Mr. Payton mentioned the traffic and the traffic lights. And if I remember correctly, the traffic lights were going to be put in when the project was put in. That's my recollection. And because I think that was a part of it, and so the project didn't happen, and so the traffic lights didn't happen.
If I could respond to Alderman Holmes, Dennis Marino, Manager of Planning and Zoning. You're correct that there was a commitment of $150,000 in the plan development as a condition of the plan development for the developer to be obligated to pay the city for traffic improvements that would be made. One of those under consideration would be a possible traffic light. There were other possible enhancements considered as well, but that funding has not been presented to the city because the development has not proceeded. However, the developer has provided payments for affordable housing, a voluntary contribution, and also for a job training contribution as well. To answer Ms. Esther's question, since it's rental development, it's not subject to the inclusionary housing ordinance. That's ownership housing only.
Alderman Rainey and then Alderman Nguyen.
But could you refresh our memory as to the amount paid? And was it close to $200,000?
Yes, let me just check the memorandum here. $165,000 was paid to what was then called the Mayor's Special Housing Fund, which is now the Affordable Housing Fund of the city, and $35,000 to the City of Evanston Youth Job Training Programs. And the amount I mentioned before is $150,000 yet to be contributed towards traffic circulation enhancements.
So for affordable housing and the job training program, we're talking $200,000. How many of the current developers or developments that we have either in the pipeline, in progress, or that have been built, what kind of money have we collected from those developers? Have we collected anything?
We have collected some funds. Nearly all developers, with one exception, have opted to do fee in lieu. Those that did condominium projects, did fee in lieu instead of doing affordable housing on
Tell
site.
me again what fee in lieu means.
Fee in lieu would be making a payment like what I just described. That was a voluntary payment because it was before the inclusionary housing ordinance was adopted for owner-occupied developments, if you will. But other developments have done fee in lieu contributions. More recently, 1700 Central Street, I think it's about $65,000 that they're doing as a voluntary contribution, and 1700 Ridge, the new Focus project, they're actually doing a few units on site.
What about townhouses? Are there any townhouses?
We're going to have a presentation from the development team in a few minutes, so they could best address that. Alderman Fisk, if I could, just a quick summary.
Could we just take
Yes.
Alderman Nguyen's question
course.
first? Mhm.
No, I'll wait.
Okay.
Yeah, the quick summary I'd like to make is, first of all, the two planned developments that were adopted for 1881 Oak and 1890 Maple are still in effect. The term of those PDs runs well into 2013. And the proposed changes in terms of the proposal you're about to hear, when you combine the number of units in 1881 Oak and 1890 Maple as approved under the adopted PD, 342 units. The revised proposal is 368 units. In terms of parking spaces, the combined number of parking spaces in the adopted PDs was 541 parking spaces. What's proposed in the revision is 371 spaces. The adopted PDs had a combined square footage of retail of approximately 21,000 square feet. The revised PD, the combined, is 4,000 square feet. So a change in retail. Most of that was the grocery store that was previously proposed for 1890 Maple. But certainly the development team will address why those changes have occurred. And obviously the other obvious significant issue is that this is proposed to be rental housing rather than condominiums. It's the pattern we've seen in other amendments recently approved.
Mm-hmm. Alderman Nguyen?
I'll wait till after they've made their presentation.
Okay. Yes, Grant Farrar, would you share with us what you'd like to say?
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the committee, Grant for our Corporation Counsel. Enclosed in your packet was a memorandum with respect to the inquiry that you posed to staff relative to whether or not this matter should proceed back to Plan Commission. Based upon our review of the subject ordinances and in consultation with zoning staff, it's our opinion that this does not necessarily have to go back to Plan Commission first. And the ultimate reason for that conclusion is the fact that the City Council has continuing and final jurisdiction relative to this issue. And with respect to that, the issue of substantial conformity with the code and the City Council being the final arbiter of this issue, it does not necessarily require it to go back to Plan Commission. Of course, it's a legislative determination that's made by this committee and council relative to that issue, but there is no mandatory requirement.
Thank you very much. Alderman Nguyen.
Well, I'd like to ask the question of the question that's before us tonight is whether this should be sent back to the Plan Commission or whether it should stay here. That's correct, isn't it?
Yes.
Right. So, but no application has been made at this point.
Right.
Correct.
All right. And I have one other question for you, Grant. I know that in your memo you described, or you presented the addresses of a number of PUDs that we had kept here at the Planning and Development Committee. I'd like to know if there were any that we sent back. I remember all of those, but I'm trying to remember if there were any that we sent back.
I'm looking at Mr. Marino, and I don't remember any since I've been here, and Dennis certainly does not remember any.
Okay. I guess one of my concerns about this is, and I do remember all of the ones that you listed, was that some of them changed, but not to the extent that, in my mind, this changes. This is a significant alteration from the prior presentations that we had. And essentially, it's the building. It's now going from two buildings to being joined as one building. The original one for the one at on Emerson actually had a waterfall down the front of it, and it was condominium. To me, those are significant enough that I would question whether it should go back to the Plan Commission, because this is an entirely new project.
Well, I think that those touch upon the zoning issues, and I will certainly defer to zoning staff relative to that. But based upon my review and in talking with Dennis and Director Griffin, there seemed to be enough ambiguity in the new proposal based upon a first blush reading. But this is very early in the process. We were posed a question whether or not it had to go back to Plan Commission definitively. We think that at this point in time, it could go either way. So we tried to, I'm only up here to address just the code and past practice, conforming that to the code as best we can.
So the standards, what are the standards under which it would have to go back to the Plan Commission?
Well, I think those are laid out in the well, that's the other issue. I mean, the issue of what constitutes a major adjustment is not explicitly spelled out in the code, but what really is the takeaway is that every major adjustment to any planned development has to have final city council approval. So we viewed it, I think I viewed it from the end stage of the process and not so much the beginning stage of the process, and I didn't necessarily go on into the zoning issues. What I tried to determine was, from a code standpoint, from past practice standpoint, where is the final arbiter in this process? And the only thing that's undisputable is that it is going to be the city council. So what we tried to do, and whether these are major adjustments or not, I think that is a focus of discussion that will go forward. But what we tried to do from the legal standpoint and the code compliance standpoint is see where in the process does the city council come in. And if it is indeed final continuing jurisdiction of the city council, that's where we tried to just address that part of the issue.
Well, and my issue is that the first one of these PUDs was approved in 2006, so that was 6 years ago. And the second one was in 2009, 3 years ago. And now we're combining them for something entirely new. And so to me, the question is, I mean, yes, I agree with you, we are the final arbiter. And so given I agree with what this somewhat murky code says, that's the one nexus that you see there. But then to me, the process of our Plan Commission has real value. I mean, in terms of having the Plan Commission, who are experts on this, review this over time, with the public having more of an opportunity to speak on these issues and to study them than just coming to P&D. I mean, there's a longer process, and I value that process, especially considering that this is, to me, a dramatically different project. And the fact that the first one of these PUDs was approved 6 years ago. I mean, the community surrounding this area is significantly different. And that, to my mind, I think that this merits going back to the Plan Commission so that it can have a thorough review. And I recognize that it could go, in your opinion, either way, but to me, the value of the process of the Plan Commission can't be discounted to the community.
Well, that touches upon a somewhat larger issue. Is it perhaps advisable for the council to consider text amendments to more clearly delineate the process? Because
absolutely, I see what the issues are here, and we need to make this very clear, because this shouldn't be. This should be very well spelled out in terms of where it should go. I mean, I think, to me, something like this is such a significant difference that that it absolutely should go back to the Plan Commission. I'm not questioning your analysis, but I disagree. Well, I disagree that, in the sense that I think that the process for the community is critically important, and amending a PUD to this degree at this time, when the last time one portion of it was approved 6 years ago, really to change it at P&D, is my mind, is shortchanging the public on the process that they deserve.
Alderman Rainey, and then I would like to speak.
I would really like to hear from the presentation before we jump to any conclusions here. I think we need to hear. And I would encourage us to do that.
I just had a question for Grant on following up on what Alderman Nguyen said. Can the Plan Commission even receive an issue if there's not an application? I mean,
Well, the application has to go to staff. So but the process of that, I would defer to Director Griffin to speak to.
What?
I mean, that's why we're here tonight, is to talk about where this is going to go. But what are we talking about is going? I mean, if there's not an application.
Well, it's a significantly bigger application to go back to the Plan Commission. The what application we would get is the amendments, the text, the updated traffic study, because it's a different mix of going from 21,000 square foot of retail down to 4, adding rental apartments. It's a whole different traffic mix. So when we get that application, that's what we would bundle up, analyze, and bring back to the Planning and Development Committee.
But if it went to Plan Commission, what the Plan Commission would review are just those changes from the previous PD?
No.
Or the entire package?
Like you, they would review the entire package.
Okay. All right. Well, I wanted to clear that up. And my feel, I mean, this is why we're here tonight, is to talk this through and also hear the proposal. But
Can I ask? Alderman Nguyen made a comment that I'm just not clear on.
Mm-hmm.
You said the whole area had changed. So
I said that it was likely that some of the residents in the area are very different than they were in 2006.
in terms of what I'm
residents. I mean, the people who would be affected by
I understand
that.
what residents are. I'm trying to understand what you mean by the change. How would you know that in terms of?
Well, I just know.
It's still I'm thinking in terms of the senior housing that's right across the street from it. Northwestern's graduate student housing there.
No, my point, Alderman Holmes, is that the people who live in the notice area. I mean, I think of this how since 2006, the number of houses just on my own block that have changed hands. That new people, new residents who are living there who would not have any understanding of what happened in 2006.
Well, I don't think we have to go through a 6-month process to hear from them. I think the aldermen of the ward and the ward adjacent and all the wards that are down there are a lot of them all bunched down there, need to have a public meeting, and we'll hear. But could we please hear the facts?
I've been waiting to speak.
We're massaging this to such an extent that what was A is now going to be B.
But I think that's why we're here is to talk this through. And I made the reference to the city manager, to the law department, because my reading of the zoning ordinance, it seemed absolutely clear to me that what was being presented here was a major adjustment. And so I asked for that clarification. And I understand what you're saying about sort of backing into it, about looking at the ultimate authority and then backing through. But that's not really, if you're reading the zoning ordinance, that's not really what the zoning ordinance says. It says anything, at least from my reading, anything other than a change that's made during construction constitutes a major adjustment, and any major adjustment has to go back to the Plan Commission. So that's why I made the referral. So just so you know, because I think we also, our citizens need to rely on being able to read the zoning ordinance as well and understand that. So the clarification that you provide is helpful. I'm not sure I agree with it, but it's helpful. Okay, Alderman Braithwaite, you wanted to introduce parties and introduce the presentation.
And I'll be brief. Good evening again, committee. Alderman Peter Braithwaite for the 2nd Ward. Just 2 quick things why I'm here. First, I want to acknowledge just the residents for coming out. And about a month ago, I met with staff just to hear this for the first time, and I have a lot of questions, as you do. And the following day, interestingly enough, I met with the residents at Optima View and shared that meeting. And in the very short period of time, I received a lot of emails, phone calls, and conversations, and I realized just in order for this process to be transparent that we need to have this public discussion. So again, the reason for the referral. What I'm here to do is to invite Mr. Reifman and his developers just to give a brief explanation for their request. I am requesting that it be placed on the next available P&D schedule in January, and I'm also asking for time to be able to, as I've done with the focused development process, as I've done with the Food for Less proposal as well that we just heard a moment ago, is to have an opportunity where we invite the residents, we flyer the community to the key stakeholders, where we invite staff and developers and get some of these questions answered. Clearly this evening in this forum isn't the right setting for all those questions to be flushed out, but hopefully after we hear from the developer, it'll help us to determine the proper course. Thank you. Mr. Reifman?
Thank you, Alderman Braithwaite, members of the committee. For the record, my name is David Reifman of DLA Piper. I'm here representing the owner of the property, Mr. King, and his partner, Stephen Fifield. Just to give you a very brief bit of background, because we will present the project in much more detail at a later date. Mr. Fifield and Mr. King are moving forward on a venture together to redevelop the property. I have some materials about Mr. Fifield, who you may not know, and he's done some projects in Evanston, but he's an extremely well-known Chicago and California and other place developer, so his reputation precedes him. And I'm going to ask Pat Fitzgerald, the project architect, to come up in just a minute and give you a very brief presentation. But I do think that there are several things that have been said tonight that we should address in the context of this specific discussion. And I want to speak specifically to Alderman Nguyen's assertion that this is a major change to this project. And I disagree with that assertion. I don't believe this is a major change to the project, but I believe it's an adjustment to the project. In the memo that Corporation Counsel wrote to this committee, he identified 8 different projects, each of which have similar fact patterns in their own ways that came before this committee in the exact same way for a public hearing. Notice to people in the same manner as any public hearing for discussion by the Planning and Development Committee. Each of those projects was heard in the manner that we're suggesting it be heard tonight. Mr. Marino identified that there is a proposed increase in the number of dwelling units and a reduction in the amount of parking. In addition, it's extremely important to note that there is a reduction of 80,000 feet of floor area of the FAR and a reduction in height from that which was approved. There is a reduction in the retail, but for those who know the history of this project, it began with over 40,000 square feet of retail, was dropped all by the developer's initiative to try to make this project happen, reduced to 15,000 square feet of retail, and increased again when the opportunity for Trader Joe's arose. That did not work out through no fault of the city, through no fault of Mr. King. But so I want to address, again, a couple of specifics in terms of why this is not a major adjustment and put it in the context of those very same projects I just referenced. First of all, the increase in dwelling units. We're talking, first of all, this project came through as 2 separate projects, with the second project being considered in the context of an entire block. So in some ways, this was considered as a single project, but a portion of the project was condominium and a portion was rental. The 1890 building was always proposed as rental. That's not a change. The market for rental is there. The city is very familiar with the experience of projects that stalled out as a result of problems in the economy and problems in the condominium market. And the problems that this project has experienced since 2006 or 2009 are similar in nature to the other projects that this council considered and which now are in process, whether we're talking about the focused development on Ridge or the project on Central Street or any of the other projects that you've seen. So let's discuss a little bit what we're talking about in terms of those changes, and then I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Fitzgerald just to show you for 5 minutes what the project is going to be or proposed to be. So we're talking about increasing the number of dwelling units by 26 from 342 to 368. That's a 7% increase. At 1717 Ridge, it was a 30-unit increase from 256 to 286, or 12%. At 1700 Central Street, the City Council, in the same process, authorized an increase of 29 units from 51 to 80. That's more than 50%. So in terms of all the numbers of units for a project here, the absolute number of increase is less. The proposed reduction in parking will result in a ratio of 1-to-1. That's consistent with the downtown plan, consistent with what was approved at 1717 Ridge, consistent with what was approved at 1700 Central to achieve approximately 1-to-1, 1.25-to-1 ratio. We discussed the reduction in retail. Again, this is something Mr. King proposed to do. It's not mandatory. It's not required in the zoning district. There's still a certain amount of retail that will be provided. And again, at 1717 Ridge, we had a situation with a planned development which had 4 distinct buildings proposed. They were combined, and 2 of them, on the portion that was not developed, were combined into a single building, a single project, where once there was 2, then there was 1. It was still found to be consistent with the original intent. So in my opinion, and I'm going to ask Pat to come up and give you 5 minutes of a view, and I think you will see that what we're talking about is a project that has undergone fairly major adjustments under the code, held at the Planning and Development Committee pursuant to a practice in the ordinance, but generally consistent with the project that this committee, council, and the public have seen before. The last thing I'll say is there's actually a reduction in the traffic as a result of this project from what was approved under the original ordinances as amended. So with that, we would ask that you place this matter on your agenda for a public hearing before this committee at the first meeting in January, which I believe is January 14th. We would go through a similar process as other projects have been, where we will submit a revised zoning analysis, revise supporting materials, and move forward with the council's consideration. Mr. Fitzgerald.
Thank you very much. Pat Fitzgerald, principal at Fitzgerald Associates Architects. We were the architects for both of the prior proposals and have also authored this present proposal. I'll start off. These are buildings that Mr. Fifield has built, none of them designed by us, but it's an impressive collection, and these are only a few. Could we have the next slide, please? Can I control it here? Yes. The right. Gotcha. These are some of Mr. King's projects, which incorporate affordable housing, public housing, and new construction in a number of areas. This is the site that we're talking about, and I would call your attention to the red dashed line, which differentiates the site into the 2 original proposals. Red arrows indicate pedestrian and traffic ingress to the site. Previously, there were curb cuts on Emerson Street that were topic of much conversation and some concern. Those have been eliminated. Instead, what now faces along Emerson Street are townhomes. There are 12 townhomes now, which is an increase over what was previously proposed, and those are set back 7 feet from the sidewalk. We heard several times that this project needed to be more transitional, and we remembered those comments and have tried to incorporate some of those things into the redesign. This shows a ground floor plan, lobbies at either end, set back with the similar park space at the west end, close to Oak Street, and the circle that appears in the street and across the street on the Maple end, lobby at either end to enter each of these really 2 distinct buildings separately. The shared element here is the garage and the amenities. The towers stand independent and are separately served. You can see the retail space along Maple, which helps conclude the retail strip there, but I would point out that the lobby and those other spaces will be active spaces. They're just not retail. This is the podium level.
Could you go back just to the previous slide?
Certainly.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
This shows the principal garage entry, which is at the west end of the project. Then this is the amenity level, and here you can see there are 2 buildings. The blue tinted spaces are common areas, and so those are 1-story spaces that essentially join the 2 towers. And the roof deck is there so that the amenities can be shared between these buildings. That allows us a level of amenity that is far beyond what was previously proposed with the 2 separate buildings. 2 smaller buildings could not support this level of amenity. As you go up the building beyond the 3rd floor, clearly 2 buildings. This is an interesting slide, I think, because in the yellow you see the buildings as they were originally proposed, fronting the street. Each 2 stories taller, with significantly more floor area and crowding a little closer to the curb on the north side and so forth. In other words, the project as proposed falls entirely within the bulk, the height, and the setbacks that were previously approved. So this is the project that we're proposing, and we think that it's a very reasonable project and in many ways an improvement over the 2 separate buildings, simply by being able to do things that you couldn't do with separate buildings. Thank you.
In conclusion, I know there are many questions about the project, which we will be prepared to address more fully, but I simply want to note a couple things. Again, to reiterate what Alderman Rainey was discussing, there's no subsidy for this proposal whatsoever. This is an extremely high-end rental product. This will bring shoppers downtown. This will generate $1 million a year in property taxes, new property taxes, and in our view fulfills the vision for downtown that began with Church Street Plaza almost 20 years ago. So with that, we would respectfully request that this matter be placed on for a public hearing on January 14th, and we appreciate your consideration. We have our full team, including Mr. Fifield, Mr. King, available if you have any questions this evening. I'm just going to leave you with some information about Mr. Fifield's company, since he may be somewhat unfamiliar to you, and if you have any questions, let us know. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll open it up for a discussion. Alderman Rainey.
Well, I'm going to make an argument for moving forward on this, and I'm going to explain a few reasons why. Getting back to some of the public comment, first of all, we have to get over 2 things. We have to get over Trader Joe's, and we have to get over the research park. The research park was a failure. The building, one of the buildings is a vacant building that was more or less abandoned to some extent. The Charles Shaw debacle. The other is a vacant lot. There is nothing, just for those of you who've never dealt with the real estate people at Trader Joe's, there is nothing you can do. No amount of money, no amount of incentive can make Trader Joe's go someplace they don't want to be. Nothing. You cannot do anything. So what do we have now? We don't have Trader Joe's here, but we have Trader Joe's on Chicago Avenue. You want to talk about hundreds of employees and 50 years of service to this community? It's 13,000 square feet of store and a $2 million requirement that we buy for parking lots. So, while we're going to get Trader Joe's, there's definitely a cost to it. So it's not going to be there. The city of Evanston has vacant retail space in the Maple Avenue garage that has sat empty across from the theater, across from all the stores, next door to a hotel. So, I don't know how desirable retail space is on the first floor in this setting. So I think 4,000 square feet of retail space is probably maybe pushing it. Hopefully it'll get occupied. I know in some places we're saying, and we've talked about this, Alderman Nguyen and Alderman Fisk no, and Alderman Holmes and Wilson also no. We've talked about the problem of requiring retail space on all first floors in residential buildings. It doesn't always work, and nothing looks worse than vacant new space. Office space, I'm telling you, there are floors of vacant office space in this town. So, you might be getting downtown prices in the Rotary building. Maybe that's why some of it's empty. But anyway, so to say that there's not office space here or that there's not enough retail space, I think is just, barking up the wrong tree. There is a partner. There is a project. There is financing. There is a set of plans ready to go. If we send this back to the Plan Commission, whose only job is to review it and send it to us. That we're talking 6 months. This could put this whole project asunder. I think that would be a terrible mistake. The time has come where, those of you who live at 1720 Maple, I can't tell you the complaints we got, and the people that came here and stood in front of this committee and said, you can't build that building. It's going to block my view. It's going to this. It's going to create traffic jams so that we'll have to shut down downtown. 1720 Maple was not people's favorites before it came out of the ground. So, just because you have a view now doesn't mean you'll always have. Just because there's going to be more buildings doesn't mean there's going to be disaster and traffic. We were told by people who lived west on Church Street when we built the theater, and Alderman Nguyen, you've got to remember this, that gridlock. Nobody would be able to move in this town. Children, small children would be killed crossing the street because of traffic from the theater. We figured it out. We figured it out. This plan requires that the developer do traffic control, and that's going to happen. I think that the opportunity to have this project and to have it more quickly than were we to send it to the Plan Commission so they could send it back to us is just asking for trouble and is anti-economic development in every sense of the word. So I'm going to encourage this council to support this project, staying at planning and development, and urge our staff to be extremely diligent in managing from the outside the development of this project. I think it's beautiful. I thought it was beautiful before. I think it makes a lot more sense this way. It's a project that can actually work, and this is where our buildings our big residential buildings are supposed to be. I mean, we're getting ready to build or to support the development of an office building at Main and Chicago Avenue, for God's sakes, and we are going to help subsidize that. So you're going to get your wish. But this building, this is a developer who's paid already for affordable housing, who's going to do a training program, who's done everything to do what we've asked him to do, and now they've got a project and a competent, very prosperous, very really knowledgeable developer in Fifield, and let's go. My understanding is that they've even been promised money. What more can you ask for?
Alderman Holmes, then Alderman Nguyen.
Well, I certainly am going to support it. I think that, we've been waiting for it to happen. And certainly with as the other projects in the community that came before us and had to stop because of the economic downturn that are moving now, like Focus and Central Street. Here they are back again, and just based upon the presentation, in terms of the changes, I mean, they're less than what's happening at Focus or on Central Street. So in terms of the footage, of the square footage of retail, I have to agree with Alderman Rainey. We don't know if it'll work or not, but hopefully that it will. I certainly think that we need to move ahead to give this developer a chance to get his building going and get more money on our tax rolls.
Alderman Nguyen, then Alderman Wilson.
Yes, well, I've expressed my view on where this should go, but I would like to ask the staff for some things to be sent out to the council. I'd like to have the Plan Commission report of 2006 sent out to the council, and I'd also like to have the second Plan Commission report from, is it 09, distributed to the council as well. What my memory is in 06, the Plan Commission was opposed to this project specifically because it violated the downtown plan with the height that it had. The downtown plan permitted 85 feet, and the property on Oak was 185 feet. Now, I know that this has reduced its height to, I believe it's 165 feet, but I think that we should all, members of the council who were not on the council back then should understand what went on at the Plan Commission. And for the record, I opposed both of these because I believe that they violated the downtown plan. So I think that it's important that all of us reread what happened at the Plan Commission, since what we're doing right now, what it looks as though we may be doing is simply looking at the amendments. But in order to really analyze the whole thing, we need to understand the entire project from the beginning.
I guess to some extent I agree with almost everybody, but the net result is primarily I agree with Alderman Rainey. I think that it's important to, we don't want to rush it through. As Alderman Braithwaite mentioned, I think it's important to have enough time for appropriate community input and a community meeting or meetings to take place, but I think it makes the most sense to keep it in front of the committee rather than send it back to the Plan Commission. Not that the Plan Commission wouldn't do an excellent job, but in conjunction with coming back to this committee, as Alderman Nguyen said, I think it's important for us to get the entire history and context so that we're well prepared to make a timely decision and not leave it in limbo.
Okay, I guess that leaves it with me. I'm going to support this going back to the Plan Commission for the reasons that I stated previously. I just don't see the reading in the zoning ordinance that would permit us to keep it here at council. I understand that we probably won't have the votes to do that, so I'm encouraged that we are going to have a public hearing here at Planning and Development should the council not agree with us or not agree with the majority on the committee tonight. But I do think that part of the process and where we might be erring is that in consideration of various developments in the past, when I sat on that side of the dais in the audience wondering how the council was making its decisions, it seemed very clear on various projects. When projects ought to be going back to the Plan Commission, they didn't, and they were held at council. And I think that fed into public mistrust, and that is not something that I want to compound. So I think we really need to look at what's in our zoning ordinance. The zoning ordinance clearly calls for this to go back to the Plan Commission. I would like to find a way to expedite that at the Plan Commission, but I think the public hearing process through the Plan Commission gives much more time than we're allowed, or than we can give it here at Planning and Development, even if we're holding a public hearing. So I'm going to support this going back to the Plan Commission. Alderman Rainey.
Madam Chairman, was there a motion to move? I know Alderman Braithwaite said that was his intention to move it to the first meeting in January. Was there an actual motion made to do that?
No, there was not.
All right, I'd like to make a motion that this development, the 1890 Maple development, be placed on the Planning and Development agenda, the first meeting in January, for the purpose of a public hearing. Is that where the public, Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Is that public hearing for the purpose of moving this forward, as opposed to sending it back to the Plan Commission?
I would second that.
Okay, Alderman Nguyen.
I have a question. I know an application hasn't been filed yet, is that correct?
Right.
Does that provide the staff with enough time to do the zoning analysis before the first meeting in January? When will the application be filed?
We've met a couple of times with the developer, but yes, he'd have to have a complete application in by the end of this week in order us to give us the time to package it up. We have to work with law a little bit too, or a lot of bit, because of the nature of having to design,
right.
update the ordinances.
So,
wait. We wouldn't need to have the application in order to have a public hearing, so to speak, of this new project.
Sure, we will.
I think we will have an application. I just wanted to give them a nice hint that we need that by the end of this week in order to move this forward, to have a full application, full public hearing at your January 14th meeting.
January 14th. That's over. That's a month and a few weeks.
Well, my question was, does the developer know that that's his deadline then?
Let's ask them.
We do
Well, that's
now,
what I'm-
and we'll make it by the end of the week.
Okay,
And,
right.
I haven't looked at exactly what we'll be asked to provide, but we'll work with Mr. Griffin to get that information. We have all the information, so we'll provide it by the end of the
Okay.
week.
We're talking about January, the second week in January, and they have to have it in this week?
Yeah, but there has to be a public notice.
We send it out for interagency review. We'll schedule it for Spark. There's a number of steps, but I mean, it's not just sitting on somebody's desk.
No, but the notice what is the notice, 30 days?
No, we can do the notice. That's about the easiest part of the.
Right, that's what I was thinking. Okay. All right, just as long as we all are on the same.
Alderman Nguyen.
Right, thank you. I hadn't quite finished yet.
Sorry.
I would also like to
I
emphasize.
think we need to micromanage it here. I think.
Right.
And also, there's everything.
Well, it's moved and seconded, and this is discussion.
Right. I just wanted to make one other point, Alderman Rainey, and I had still thought I had the floor. I believe it was in 2009, there were notice problems. This was before you were here, Steve. There were some notice problems that caused problems in the community, and I want to make sure that we don't have notice problems again. We should never have notice problems. So I want to make sure that that does not happen again.
And that happened in the Plan Commission.
I can't remember where it was, Ann, but it was a problem, and I want to make sure it's very clear this time. So, I have one other question.
Sure.
So if we're having a meeting here, if this is coming before us, then this will be available to the public. The application will be available to the public as well, as soon as the notice goes out, or when will it be available?
It's public information once it hits our office, so it'll be there with the files and everything. The staff report, if that's what you're talking about, that's what will be available when it's sent to you all as part of this package on the 14th.
All right. Okay. Then I would also like to have made public, available to the public, the Plan Commission report that I asked for.
Yes, I got it.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, any more discussion? All right, there's a motion on the floor that's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay, 3-2, this is going to council for.
And that was both 6 and 9, right? Okay.
Okay, our other, yes.
Just a point of clarification, this is the final vote on setting the public hearing and moving forward, correct? This does not have to go to council, as far as I understand.
Oh, it doesn't have to go to council? Oh, all right.
It's really a committee action.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just want to.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
One last thing.
Okay, well, we have another item for discussion tonight. It's PD2, Regulation of Vacation Rentals. Staff requests discussion and direction from the Planning and Development Committee regarding regulation of vacation rentals. We have 5 people signed up to speak. You'll have 3 minutes apiece. It's Julie Kohler, Mark Rosati, Greg Richards, Judy Kohler, and Maureen O'Donnell. So if we could clear the room really quickly so we can continue on with the committee meeting. And Ms. Kohler, if you're here, there you are. Okay, great. And then Mark, if you could be ready to speak right after she. Okay.
Good evening. I'm Evanston resident Julie Kaler. It has been 5 months since
Julie, I'm sorry, could we have your address? We need your name and address.
I live in Evanston. I'm at 2525 Ashland.
Thank you.
It has been 5 months since my neighborhood organization requested that I call the zoning department regarding our new neighbors advertising on countless internet websites to rent out bedrooms within their home to transient guests. The only thing that has been accomplished in the last 5 months is the fattening of my neighbors' wallets with the cash they've been making from their illegal transient hotel. Why, on Northwestern versus Nebraska weekend alone, 12 people lodged in their home for the weekend. Before the game, I told my alderman, Jane Grover. I told the building and zoning department about this. I told the city law department. I told all of you about this in a previous planning and development committee meeting. The booking is online. You can actually see them before they occur. But yet, come football weekend, our pleas for help were ignored. Representatives from my group met with Alderman Grover and Ken Cox 2 weeks ago. Ken Cox represented to us that because Chapter 5 is the home occupations, deals with home occupations, this excludes uses that provide lodging to 3 or less non-family members. The overnight transient hotel my neighbor is running is not, in his opinion, a home occupation. Ken Cox said that what my neighbor is doing does not fall under a home occupation, but falls under Chapter 2, lodging establishment. Well, applying that chapter, my neighbor at 2515 Ashland is running an illegal rooming house. Chapter 2 applies to any building equipped to provide, for compensation, lodging rooms to 3 or more non-family members. Equipped to provide. That is important wording. All you need to show for enforcement is the intent. My neighbor and countless other illegal rooming houses in Evanston post ads all over the internet with their addresses offering overnight stays to groups far beyond 3 people. And yet, even applying Ken Cox's own interpretation, we are still unable to get any help with our neighborhood problem. If you all want to write a new restrictive ordinance requiring licensing of these so-called vacation rental homes, then so be it. But for the rest of us living with the reality of one of these illegal transient hotels on our blocks, enforce the existing laws. If the B&B ordinance is any indicator as to how long this process could take for us, we could be dealing with this problem for years in our neighborhood. Please, at the very least, on behalf of all of us operating out here in the real world, enforce Ken Cox's rooming house interpretation and start writing ordinance violations now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kaler. Mark Rosati, and then Greg, followed by Greg Richards.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Good evening. My name is Mark Rosati. I live at 2509 Ashland, and I appreciate your time and consideration of this and the previous couple of months we've discussed this issue. Since we have discussed it in the past, I'll be brief, but I just want to echo what Julie said. Both the houses immediately north of us right now are renting and what I would consider as a layman a rooming house. One is advertising, one hasn't. There's a house just a couple of blocks from us, which has been advertising extensively. I believe at the last hearing, Alderman Nguyen, you found one on your own block just by a search here. So this appears to be a growing problem. I believe this is going to have a negative impact on the quality of life. I'm concerned it's going to lower property values, lower property tax revenues for city services. Owning a 2-flat with a stable upstairs tenant who is screened, has a lease is one thing. Having transients and boarding houses in residential neighborhoods is very different. We have an elementary school on our block with 370 students. We have at least 15 minor children living on our block. And right now we really don't know who's living there from night to night, which is of concern. When you have this kind of situation, I think you lose the concept of a residential block or a residential area. We become less stable as a place to live and do business. I can't see how legitimate hotels would find this sort of situation. It just seems that if somebody were to come in and buy a foreclosed house in Evanston and decide they're going to turn it into a dog kennel and have dogs barking all night or use it for a car wash, I'm sure the city would step in. This is commercial activity that is affecting safety, security, the quality of life, and I respectfully urge the city to take action on this. Again, thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much. Mr. Richards?
Good evening. My name is Greg Richards. I live at 2529 Ashland Avenue. And as my neighbors have stated, there is a transient rental operation underway on our block. And I've spoken to this committee on this issue in 2 prior meetings. So without trying to belabor the issue, let me state again that I oppose the allowance of transient rentals, licensed or unlicensed, in residential neighborhoods. I think it's a safety issue for my children, and I think it's not in keeping with the residential character of my neighborhood. Now, my neighbors have put forth arguments in the form of a legal memorandum that such rentals are not legal under the existing zoning laws. And we delivered that legal memorandum to this committee and the city legal department before the Planning and Development Committee meeting on October 22nd. To my knowledge, no official response was received to our memorandum. Also, at the October 22nd Planning and Development Committee meeting, the committee requested that Mr. Farrar, Corporation Counsel, provide a legal opinion on just what the existing zoning code allows the city to do as far as controlling the renting of homes to transient guests. And I'd like to know right now if he has provided his opinion. And I'm asking the question, has it been provided?
Yeah.
Okay. I guess you don't know.
We have a memo.
It hasn't been requested. We never asked.
You did at the prior meeting.
Not for what you just said.
If he hasn't provided his opinion,
It's right here.
good. That would be good.
There's materials in the package.
If an opinion has been provided, then I'd like it to be made available to the public so that we can review and to see if it responds specifically to the arguments that we made in our memorandum. And if he has, then I think it's incumbent on this committee to chart a course of action to resolve this issue. This is the third meeting that I've attended. My neighbors and I have been waiting upwards of 5 to 6 months for a resolution of this issue, and that we'd like it to be dealt with. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Judy Kaler, and then Maureen O'Donnell.
Thank you very much, members of the council. My name is Judith Kaler, and I'm a resident of 2425 Central here in Evanston. It is a condo building. And I am here to oppose vacation rentals, transient hotels, whatever they may be called, because they will reduce our already reduced property values, and they will destroy our neighborhood congeniality and integrity. I'm the president of our condo association, and the first question that we get when there is a proposed sale is, do you allow rentals? The bank asks it, the realtors ask it, and if we allow rentals, it reduces property values, it reduces the ability to get a loan. So, that is very, very difficult when you're dealing with already reduced property values. So some say, well, you're a condo association. You can amend your declaration to prevent rentals. Well, when you have a situation like the market is today, you have half the people who want to stay there another 10 years, and then the other half wants to sell. Or they're going to, maybe not tomorrow, but they're going to sell in the next year or two. Well, there you have it, a situation where you have neighbor against neighbor, and you can't amend those articles in order to prevent vacation rentals. And in a condo association, you know what a vacation rental would be like? In a condo association, it's closed living community. You have neighbors above you, you have neighbors below you, you have neighbors right next to you, and you are closed together. And to have strangers running in and out of your building, there is no security that can contain something like that. And what if you have an absentee landlord? An absentee landlord. We have a resident who actually lives in Oregon. What if she decided to rent her condo out? You can't get a hold of them. And absentee landlords are a very big problem in a situation like this. Now, in addition to that, I would propose to you that the city wouldn't enforce it. The police wouldn't enforce your ordinances. As president of our homeowners association, it took us 3 years and 3 security cameras to get rid of a neighbor who was threatening our residences and threatened the whole neighborhood area. And his landlord only lived in Wilmette. And we couldn't get his landlord to do anything about it.
Ms. Kaler.
That's what we are faced with right now. And I would ask you respectfully to prohibit transient rentals, because you are going to cause chaos in the condo community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Maureen O'Donnell.
Thank you, Alderman, for hearing us. I'm Maureen O'Donnell, and I live next door to what I and many other neighbors, some of whom are very well-regarded attorneys, believe is an illegal rooming house at 2515 Ashland. The owner, as you may know, has advertised overnight room rentals in her home on Craigslist, Airbnb.com, and other websites across the globe. I have found ads for rooms in her home in Italian. These ads have offered renters plenty of ice-filled coolers and barbecue grills for parties. There are frequent strangers next door. I knocked on the door one day and a man answered. He said to me, "I don't know where the owners are. I don't know how to reach them. I just rented from them off the internet." We have dozens of children under age 18 on our block and about 370 children right across the street at a school. And I believe a revolving door of inadequately screened renters is a tragedy waiting to happen. In New York, Airbnb renters have stolen landlords' identities. In San Francisco, an Airbnb renter sustained $50,000 in damages to her apartment from a renter. 2 months ago, and only about 2 miles from here, 2 Chicago men were stabbed to death in their apartment, allegedly by a roommate who found them via Craigslist. One of the victims, 64-year-old Gary Brown, was a prosecutor and a city attorney for Kankakee. Exactly the kind of individual one might think could have sussed out a dangerous tenant. It was no protection. Ads for these hot sheet rooming houses are proliferating all over the internet. Since the neighbors at Central and Ashland asked for our city's help 2 months ago, the Corp Counsel's office has continued to indicate to us, as recently as 2 weeks ago, that its hands are tied on the matter because no current law prohibits this, an opinion that I should stress is not shared by several attorneys on the block who have studied this and offered legal briefs to the village. I'm not a lawyer, but it is my understanding that our elected officials have asked the Corporation Counsel and staff for guidance on this matter. And I'd like to know if the Corp Counsel's office or staff can share with us, all of us who will report back to the other neighbors who couldn't be here tonight, what, if any, action is being taken to prevent a hot sheet rooming house tragedy from happening here. I hope we'll get some answers soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah. You weren't signed up, Ms. Payton. Okay, so this is now open to the committee for discussion. Alderman Rainey.
Well, Madam Chairman, and for those of you who are here on this matter, there is a memorandum from the Corporation Counsel and the Assistant City Attorney in our packet, which was published online on Thursday. Well, it's page 3, it starts on 399 of the packet. It's a discussion item at the end of the Planning and Development pack. And I'm not an attorney, but I think it's very clear that the information we have is that we don't have legislation that currently controls this kind of activity. And, my neighborhood has been plagued by it also, so I'm very, very concerned about it. And our Corporation Counsel says, in conclusion, the city may exercise its home rule authority to ban or otherwise regulate vacation rentals. Staff requests direction from the council. It's, whether we should prohibit them or regulate them. So it is our job, this isn't an enforcement situation, it's a policy making situation. And, I can see where there would be times when, like to rent during the summer along the lakefront for a couple of months or a month or 3 weeks. I can almost see that. But the behavior and the way things, the actual practice of this is so negative and so destructive to those living around that I think those who have taken it upon themselves to rent have really ruined it for everybody. That's the way I'm looking at it. So, I mean, I don't. If we were to develop regulations for vacation rentals, how would we enforce them? How would we know unless the neighbors said, somebody's misbehaving? How would we even know?
Licensing.
I give up. Absolutely.
Licensing. That's the way to do it.
Business. But look, here's what it is. It is we're not talking about multifamily landlords that we know. We can identify everyone in this town. These are single-family homes. How are we going to know who's renting out their home unless the neighbors tell us? I mean, we have condo units rented right now. We have single-family homes rented. We have rental registration right now. We have no idea how many condos are being rented or how many single-family homes. I'm sorry, we don't know. We do not know. So just by saying wave the magic licensing wand does not mean you're going to get people into that.
No, but it's a tool. It's a tool.
Absolutely. It's a tool.
But once we do the tool, then we're authorizing and legalizing the vacation rentals.
Well, but you're going to depend upon the neighbors to let you know what's going on in their neighborhoods. And once then that then you can enforce. I mean, there's just no way that you could know beforehand, because most people, well, I guess some people would be honest enough to come to the city and apply, but probably not. And so you would be dependent upon the report from other residents to let you know that kind of thing was happening in their neighborhood. Then you'd have something at least to help regulate it, rather than just letting them continue to do it on their own without some kind of guidance from the city.
Okay, Alderman Wilson and Wynn, I don't know which was first.
Don was first. Oh. Well, I don't see why we should even regulate it. I think we should ban it. Because I think, and I do think, Alderman Rainey, I agree with you, but I think it's easy to catch them. I mean, I found someone during the last meeting who lives a block from me. I think trying to regulate it is going to be really problematic. And I think the arguments that the neighbors have made that it becomes, it is a business and it's in their neighborhood on a block that was all families, and it's dramatically different than renting to a tenant for a year who you would obviously screen. And so, I don't see an upside to this, for anybody except the owner of the property and the person who gets a cheap night near the football stadium or near the lake or near whatever. I think unless you ban them completely, you're going to end up with a Swiss cheese for an ordinance.
I don't see any.
Okay, Alderman Wilson.
Well, and I think that's how we ended up with a gap in what we have as far as what we can enforce. It's a spectrum with fine variations in what people can do. Maybe a college student takes 2 months to study overseas and sublets their unit for 2 months. That's probably not going to be a problem. On the other hand, clearly, renting out for parties every weekend on football weekends is a problem for the neighborhood. You have situations where they're owner-occupied. I think if it's owner-occupied and the owner is present, that's not going to be as disruptive or as much of a risk as the owner not being there. So I don't have the answers, but clearly there's a problem that needs to be addressed. I do think, as Alderman Wynn is saying, I don't think that a licensing tool is going to be sufficient to address it. I think there has to be, or there's probably should be, some set of parameters that should be prohibited. Revolving weekend parties is probably the thing that should be prohibited. There's probably some other things I'm not thinking of that should be prohibited. But I think it is going to require some pretty in-depth and careful consideration beyond just a blanket ban.
Alderman Holmes?
Believe me, I don't think that the license is a remedy for everything. I really don't. But I do believe that it is a tool that we do not use enough. And when people are doing businesses, I do think that they need to be licensed so that we can have some kind of input into what's happening, because it always comes back and lies in the city's lap in some way or another. And as we begin to look at this, and I'm all for banning them, it's fine, but I think that we start to look at the buts in terms of somebody going on a sabbatical and renting their house out for 3 months, or, the other examples that you just used. So then you can't say you're going to ban completely because you don't want to ban those. So, I think it's taking time, and I understand that people are anxious to get it done fast, but I don't think it's a quick solution in terms of how we're going to be able to manage this. And, do we need more information? How are we going to do it? What else can go into, what else is in the toolbox, or what else can we put in the toolbox to make these kinds of things work? Because then I'm sure we're going to get people coming saying, well, this is a way that I can make money, and I'm a single family home, and I'm in my home, and I'm rent out a room, and therefore, I'm keeping it safe, and that kind of thing. So I think we're going to hear both sides of the argument, farther down the line.
Mm-hmm. Alderman Nguyen?
Well, I agree with you, Alderman Holmes, but I think we could come up with some initial bright lines in terms of so that someone who goes on sabbatical, someone who's going to live in your home for 3 months, I think you're going to be. I think that's a different issue, but I do think that we can come up with something that says any rental for less than a week or even less than a month is prohibited. Or, it could be less than a week, because then, obviously then that catches what's going on here. But I have one question for the staff. I believe it was the first speaker was saying that Mr. Cox had determined that this was or is a lodging house or a lodging. I'm confused, because it sounds as though the location on Ashland does fit under one of our. Am I misunderstanding something?
Chairman Fisk, members of the committee, Grant for our Corporation Counsel, I think with respect to where the discussion is proceeding and how the discussion is sort of crystallized, I think that the advisability of coming forward with a comprehensive proposal to have a ban is going to be the preferred outcome here. I'm not exactly sure. I wasn't at the meeting. I know that the Assistant City Attorney, Mr. Cox, and the citizens had a very lengthy dialogue relative to this issue. But I think what I'm hearing from the committee right now is that they're inclined to do a ban, and to do a ban, we would want to create this standalone category. And also, I think it's highly advisable, and we've already started down the road of researching other jurisdictions' statutes that have banned these uses before. So I think that, for purposes of going forward and hearing how the committee has crystallized the discussion, I think that we can come back with a ban ordinance with certain accepted uses that, of course, can be subject to further committee and council deliberation, perhaps carve out of certain exceptions. But I don't think that right now the current ordinance, the current definitions adequately, comprehensively, and also really give us the enforcement tools and the ability to enforce on a consistent basis. Because I'm also concerned about the equal protection argument, which was raised with me in federal court, and I also think was an ancillary part of the consideration on ZBA when we did issue the citation in the summer. So I think that creating this new category, taking the best tools from from other jurisdictions. I think Palm Beach has banned them. New York, I believe, has banned them. There's many ports of call with respect to finding language that could possibly work here. So I think, and we're also very concerned about the enforcement aspect.
Right. Well, I don't know what the rest, my view is that we should take Mr. Farrar up on this, what he's just described, and that we should have the staff move forward on preparing a ban with the types of exceptions that Alderman Wilson and Alderman Holmes were discussing, that have a reasonable relationship to time. I think time is the key.
Okay, Alderman Wilson, you wanted to say?
Generally, yeah, I agree with that. And I'll also suggest that that members of the public and stakeholders who are interested submit suggested, what should be banned and why, or if someone is a stakeholder and they think that something should be accepted, what should be an exception and why. So we can kind of get that input in the front end rather than when you're preparing something and we get 400 emails after it's already prepared. I'd rather get as much input on the front end as possible so that we can get a product that's more suitable for what people are looking for.
Very well.
Okay, I just wanted to say something quickly in support of what Alderman Holmes said regarding licensing. I absolutely support a ban here. It's the right thing to do. But the one thing that licensing does provide for us is the city is protection that there are safety regulations in place. And I think that's of paramount importance, regardless of whether we're talking about student housing or B&Bs or vacation rentals, whatever we're talking about. That safety for an individual who's renting a property is paramount. So that's the reason why I mentioned that. So we have a motion on the floor, and we have a second. And all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. That's the end of our agenda tonight. Thank you very much for coming. City Council will begin in 5 minutes at 9:15. Our next meeting will be on January 14th. Have a very happy holiday. Oh, I'm sorry, December 10th. Sorry, don't. Some of you have a happy holiday, and some of you will have to wait.
Really excited, thinking maybe December was. We should have come. Don't come.